Good evening. FRC Media is pleased to host tonight's forum featuring the candidates for Fall River School Committee. My name is Keith Tebow, Director of FRC Media, and I'll be serving as the moderator for tonight's forum. All candidates were invited to participate tonight. With us are, in alphabetical order, Kevin Aguiar, Colin Dias, Randy Dudek, Thomas Corey, Emmanuel Moniz, Anna Riley, Chanel Stewart, and John Sylvia. Candidates Mark Mollicone and Shiv Thakur were also invited, but are not here with us this evening. Also joining us tonight is a panel of journalists who will be asking questions of the candidates. They are Michael Sylvia of the Fall River Reporter, Pamela Martin of Fall River Educational and Government Television, and Dan Medeiros from the Fall River Herald News. Thank you all for joining us tonight. The format of tonight's forum is as follows. Our forum will last 90 minutes. There'll be no opening statements, but each candidate will be allowed a 90-second closing statement. Each candidate will answer every question posed by a panelist and will have 90 seconds to do so. There will be no rebuttals. Prior to each question, we will randomly draw a name, and that candidate will respond to the question first. After that candidate answers, then we'll go to our right and then back around if need be until all candidates answer the question. If there are still candidates remaining who have not answered a question first, we will draw again, and that individual will present his or her closing statement first. And we are ready to start. We're going to start right off the bat now with Michael Sylvia from the Fall River Reporter asking the first question, and it will go first to Emmanuel Moniz.
So if you could, tell me what motivated you to run for school committee, and if elected or re-elected, what would be your top priority for 2026?
Well, my top priority would be, well, first and foremost, I'm running because I have children in the Florida district, attending Durfee High School. A little bit about myself, I was a former Linux director, and I believe I bring a lot to the table, and a lot of my background and stuff that I will be talking about tonight. I feel I would be a good candidate for that.
Thank you. Ms. Riley.
So I also have a student at Durfee, actually the youngest of my 6. I've had 5 Durfee graduates already. So I am at a point at my home life where I can dedicate some more time to public service. And I'm very excited to run for school committee. I've been in education for more than 30 years. I've been a teacher, a principal, assistant superintendent, and superintendent, and I feel like my experiences can benefit the district, and I hope to be able to share things I've learned and opportunities that I've had with Fall River. I've lived here my whole life, and I am excited to have an opportunity to be able to give back.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart?
I also have 2 children in district, so I felt this was the time to do it. I have wanted to run a couple times, but COVID happened and that changed a couple things and decided not to do it then. I have one of my children, she has a lot of medical things, and I was going through a lot with her then, and that's why I didn't run last term, and this was my time that I said, it's time to do it. There's a lot of things that I feel like is going on in the district that I felt it was time to jump in the race.
Thank you. Mr. Sylvia.
Yeah, I don't have any children in the school system. My daughter's 37, but I did graduate from Durfee High School back in '82. And I think some of the things that happened back in 1982 are probably happening right now. I have 40 years with the federal government. I retired a year and a half ago. I've been involved in the community in the past, and I figured now that I have more time, now is the time to try it.
Thank you. Mr. Aguiar.
I've spent many years as an elected official, both as a state representative and a school committee member, and it's a really rewarding, serving in elected official in that role is a really rewarding profession. We can actually make a difference every single day. Even though it's a part-time job, it's something that we can actually shape the future of our city. I have some priorities, and they continue to be the same. Accountability, we need to hold people accountable to make sure they're doing the best job possible for our students. our academic achievement is way too low. It still remains too low. The MCAS scores recently came out, and we're very flat, and we're trying to get back to pre-COVID levels. That's not acceptable, in my opinion. Budget stability is another one. We've been fortunate through the Student Opportunity Act and the state to allow us to have a budget that's actually sufficient. But we have to watch that budget because the money's not always going to be there. We spend money sometimes in this district and it makes no sense why we do, but the majority of members of the school committee continue to allow the superintendent to spend money on things that we really shouldn't have. We need to have priorities. We need to know that when we're spending money on something, that we're actually going to use the curriculum or the staff in the appropriate way to make a difference for our kids. So we have a lot of ongoing issues in the school system that need to be addressed. I ask for your support for another 2 years so I can continue to address them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dias.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Mike. And I just want to thank FRC Media for hosting this and for Herald News and FRG TV. When I joined the school committee just a year and a half ago, I really developed a passion for public service. Anyone that knows me, who watches me, who interacts with me sees that I love to solve issues, or at least I love to attempt to solve issues. But like Mr. Aguiar said, we need a majority on the school committee to be able to do that. And I'm very hopeful that going into the next year, if I'm one of your 6 votes, that we can work with the committee in good faith to address the issues in this district. Mr. Aguiar's right. The MCAS scores that just came out, our student achievement is not where it needs to be. And when we go back to the public who asked me questions of, we're spending all this money on education, where is it going towards? What's the answer for them? So Mr. Aguiar's right. We need to really hold the individuals in this district accountable and do what's best for this district.
Thank you. Mr. Dudek.
Hi, like most of the candidates to my left, I do also have 2 middle school students in the district right now. And they are not my entire focus, but what gave me the extra push I needed to actually attempt to run this time around. One of the problems that I've noticed, if I can back up a second, my family moved to Fall River 5 summers ago. And anytime you move, one of the first things you do is you Google what the school district is. And we all know that the reports you see online aren't super positive. What I can say, though, is in our time here, the schools have been way better in so many ways than we were led to believe from the online reviews. No, everything isn't perfect. Mr. Aguiar is right. The MCAS scores are still not up to where they were pre-COVID, though in our defense, the rest of the states are also not up to that level. There's still work that needs to be done. And again, while I've seen so many positives, way more than I was led to believe, I can admit there's still more work that needs to be done in order to get the schools where all of the students, all of the teachers, and all of the families want this school system to be for our entire community.
Thank you. Mr. Corey.
Thank you to the media outlets for granting us this forum tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you to FRC Media for hosting us. I am a student in Fall River of public schools. My 4 children have attended public schools here in the city. I spent my entire career as an employee for the Fall River Public Schools in the role of a social studies teacher first. And upon my master's degree, I became a school adjustment counselor and chose to work with the most disaffected youth in our system and come to realize that everybody talks about MCAS, and that's a real catchphrase, but I've never been a fan of high stakes testing to begin with, right from the get-go. When they did the No Child Left Behind Act, they ended up leaving behind gateway cities like ours because those tests do not test equivalence across the board. You know, when you're dealing with white-collar communities and blue-collar communities like ours, there's a big discrepancy. So I've always fallen to the social emotional learning side of things, because if we can get a child in school involved emotionally in their learning, then they become more invested in the entire process, and incrementally they become more confident and they become better learners.
Thank you.
And that takes a lot of time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Corey. All right, Pamela Martin will ask our next question, and first to answer in this round will be Chanel Stewart.
Okay. Teacher retention is based on much more than salary. In fact, studies from iHire and Indeed show that low pay is not among the top 3 reasons that teachers leave. What policies beyond pay hikes will make your teachers feel valued, motivated, and want to remain with FRPS?
I agree, it's not just money. Most things aren't just money. So I think that class sizes I still think are too high. It's different from when we were back in school, and when I was in school, you could have 30 kids in a classroom, and the kids today they have more needs. So you have to put less kids in a classroom, or truly, I think that all classrooms need paras, all of them, especially the younger ones from K to 3, K to 4. I think that will help with the literacy. I think we have a very big literacy problem. And I think that if you have them in the younger classrooms, you have more if you keep the classroom sizes low, at the very least, give them a para, I think that will help, because they have more help, that they're not just left on their own. I also think that they're not getting the help that they need. I think that it's not just money. It's a lot more than money. They need a lot more help than just that part. Plus, they're money-wise, they're coming out of their pocket, paying for a lot of things. A lot of people don't realize that the kids are destroying their classroom when they're having behaviors. They're tearing it down. They just spent $300 doing this whole big thing in their classroom. A student is having a meltdown, a very valid thing that they're going through. They just spent a couple $100 doing a thing. Kids, nobody's repaying for that. Now they have to come out of pocket again for all of the stuff that just happened in the classroom. It's a lot of things. It's not just money. So.
Thank you. Mr. Sylvia?
Yeah, I agree regarding the teachers. I think if we were able to hire more paras in the school, they could really help the teachers a lot. But again, money isn't always the solution to a problem. I'd like to see us, really support the teachers. So if there's an issue going on in the classroom, to get that support from the principals. I hear a lot of times that's not the case, that they're not getting the support from their principals, and it's just like, deal with this. This is an issue going on, you need to deal with it. And I really think we need to push forward and give them that support. The other thing, and I worked in HR for 40 years, and it's the same with me. You're gonna really work hard for someone that you feel has got your back. So I think doing that, also, award programs, maybe giving people like a $50 award or a gift card or something like that to show them they're appreciated. Have, a party, if they've done this, that, or the other thing. So, here in Fall River, I know that the pay we talk about, but the pay's lower in the towns, but they're not dealing with the behaviors here and the different situations. So I think when we look at recruiting, there's 2 sides. The people are coming here, they know what they're going to deal with in a town, and they know what they're going to have to deal with here in the city, and they are making more money than the surrounding towns, the majority. But that's basically it in a nutshell. I think we need to show the folks that are here that we appreciate them.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Aguirre?
I would say, first and foremost, pay is an issue. I know that the reports might not be, but pay is definitely an issue. So this committee and the administration for the last contract, we were able to utilize some of the resources that were given to us by the state to actually create an opportunity to get teachers on parity with the pay. So pay certainly is an issue. But we do need to support teachers. We need to support the classroom. We cannot have 0 expectations for behavior in a classroom. That's a real issue. People don't want to talk about it, but it's a real issue. So we need to have high expectations for behavior and learning. The administration in the schools, principals, vice principals, superintendent, they need to support the teachers by holding students accountable for proper behavior. Everyone is so worried about giving a discipline to a student, and then the classrooms get out of control. So we need to create an environment where students can learn and teachers can teach. I've said that each year that I've been on this school committee, and we need to do that. We cannot be afraid of it. Just this past week in the evening, I had to counsel a new teacher who called me because of these exact concerns that I'm talking about. We have children in 27, 28 students in classrooms with no paraprofessional, with no other support, and they're in there with 28 students. They're trying their best, they're working hard, but when they try to address a behavior and the administration doesn't support them, that teacher is potentially we're going to lose good teachers because they're actually saying, I don't think I can do this profession. And these are dedicated people who work hard every single day. So
Thank you.
I had to talk to her about
Thank you.
persevering, and she's going to make it.
Thank you. Mr. Dias.
Thank you. Just want to start with, again, everything that my colleagues said were correct. And in terms of the pay scale, it's important that we continue the good work the school committee did to make sure our pay is competitive with the rest of the region. So that's one. Two, a lot of this comes down to a good, high-functioning HR department, which I believe we need a lot of work to do to make sure we're following policies. As my colleague to my right just said, we can make sure from the top level all the way down that educators and all of our staff feel supported, and a lot of that comes down to HR. So that's just one way as well. And to look at the specifics, so there is data on why educators and staff are leaving. They're called exit interviews. Again, I asked Tracy Curley for those exit interviews, and unfortunately, like many other things I asked for, I haven't gotten them. So if we need to find out the specific reasons, if there's things that we need to address in a policy standpoint, superintendent should provide the committee with those exit interviews so we can see what the specific issues are. But again, I agree with my colleagues there. We need to support our educators from the school committee, from the superintendent on down. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dudek.
I do also know from both talking with teachers while trying to get my signatures for petition to get on the ballot, as well as attending school committee meetings, there have been no shortage of teachers who've told me, or I've heard them tell everybody, that they don't feel like they're an equal stakeholder in the school. They feel like too often they're being forced to choose between their own personal families and the students they want to take care of. And one thing that I think we need to do is make sure that the teachers feel that they are an active, welcome part of the school community. I did say that almost all of our experiences have been positive. One exception was one day I came home last year and one of my daughters was on the verge of tears, and asked her what's wrong, and she says, one of my teachers is moving for a job out of state. And at first I'm consoling her, it's like, well, if the teacher's moving, there's nothing anybody can do about that. And as I'm consoling her, I'm thinking, it had better be to one of 48 states and not the one that is one town south. Like, okay, where is she going to? And unfortunately, the answer is Rhode Island. So something needs to be done. Again, I've talked with the teachers. They don't feel like they're an equal part of the community. And as someone who's with my children more often in the day than I am, we should be making them feel like they are an equal stakeholder, if not a higher stakeholder.
Thank you. Mr. Corey.
I couldn't disagree more. Just last night, I ran into one of our long-standing teachers, and I asked her how she felt once we were able to negotiate their pay raise this past year, and she's thrilled, and she's been with us for years. And then I ran into one of our former adjustment counselors who is now working in the Dartmouth system, but wishes that she would be back in Fall River because she said the need in Fall River outweighs the pay. And she said that she really misses the students in Fall River. And I know firsthand from so many of the educational leaders that in our schools, there are support teams in every single school. And I know for a fact that morale right now across the district is much higher.
Thank you. Mr. Moniz.
Okay, thank you. I disagree. Like anything, I'm a business owner, and I know if I don't support the people that work for me and give them everything that I need, everything that they need, they won't be able to do their job efficiently. And especially with all the new teachers that we have, I feel that they need more support than ever. They need from the principals, from the superintendent, everybody's got to chip in, give them what they need, and support them in any way we see need fit. Whether it's money, whether it's more paras, whatever they need, we got to make sure we listen and do what we have to do for them. At the end of the day, we got to keep teachers. We can't keep losing teachers, and that's how I feel.
Thank you. Ms. Riley.
So I'm going to speak to this, I think, more from the school committee policy piece of it and how school committee members can support staff, because we know, I agree it's not money. no one becomes a teacher to be rich. It's not a job that leads to big wealth. So we become teachers because we care about students and we enjoy working with students every day. And so making sure that teachers and students have a safe place to work. It's clean and it provides both physical safety and it provides emotional safety so that when teachers have needs, they don't feel like they can't share those with their principal, with their administration, so they can get the support they need. I think there are things as a policy board that we can do when we look at student codes of conduct and we look at support for staff. Those things are issues we can attack as a school committee through policy. And then some of my colleagues shared, I think Chanel shared, that teachers are buying their own supplies and doing that kind of work, and could we celebrate them in some way? And I think that's very possible. And as a school committee, what are we putting in the budget to help support that and address it and make sure that there is enough money in the budget to support what teachers need for their classrooms and what things that principals might need in order to provide opportunities to celebrate all of the good happenings that do happen at school. Because I think when there's a sense of community in a school, teachers love going to work, they love their students, and they want to be able to feel like they love going to their school every day. And I think there are things we can do as a school committee to make sure that all of those needs get addressed in some way from our purview.
Thank you. Thank you. Dan Medeiros is next with our next question, and it will be directed to Tom Corey.
So as people have said already, the district is still lagging in terms of MCAS scores. So given that MCAS is no longer a graduation requirement, how concerned are you and how much effort should the district be expending on trying to improve these specific scores?
MCAS got voted down last year in the election by a wide margin. Parents throughout the Commonwealth realized that MCAS was not a fair assessment of their child's learning. And I couldn't agree more, because when you touch a child's creative side, you see something new that's growing out of that child educationally. You cannot just depend on metrics and assessments to judge a child's learning, because I, for one, would never have done well in the MCAS test. I never was a good tester. And there are so many of those examples across the state, I can't even tell you. It's just incredible. I'm sick of hearing MCAS as a metric for graduation requirements, and I'm glad it got voted down last year.
Thank you. Mr. Moniz.
Well, the MCAS, just like the scoring is way too low. We're spending millions of dollars on MCAS and not getting these kids prepared and giving them an opportunity to push and drive to pass these tests. I feel our teachers need more support in that area, and we need to hold people accountable to help and push them forward. And that's how I feel about the MCAS.
Thank you. Ms. Riley.
Sure, so I'll just say MCAS is one measure. It's certainly not the measure of any student specifically, but what it does provide is it provides a teacher, a school, the district, information. It lets us know where students need the most support, how we can make sure we direct attention to those needs, and how we can provide teachers with any professional development that might be required to help support a specific standard, and also whether the curriculum that we have is covering all those standards. If we can look across the test scores for all students in, pick a grade, in grade 4, and we can identify that on that test, there were specific questions that many students were getting incorrectly. That could tell us we have a gap in our curriculum. There's something that we're not doing in our instruction, and students aren't even getting the information they need to be successful. I don't believe MCAS measures any one student. I think it measures how well we're providing the things that the students need to be successful. It's a test of basic measures, and I think it is important that we continue to have one uniform measure that lets us know how our students are doing, because that's really a measure of how we're doing. Every student is capable of passing the MCAS. It's what the adults are doing and teaching to make sure those standards are coming across that help us kind of measure where we need to improve to make sure students can be successful. I'm not sure about the graduation requirement piece. I think there's we'll have some time to test that out. I do have a concern that
Thank you. Ms. Stewart.
I understand why we stopped with the graduation requirement piece of it. I also think that without that graduation requirement piece, that our dropout rate might be better, because a lot of kids were dropping out at that point because they weren't going to graduate anyways, so they were just saying, what's the point of staying in school, so let's just drop out. So I truly believe that our dropout rate will be better. I also think that we should keep doing MCAS though, because I agree that at this point we're not going to teach. The problem was teaching to a test, and that's what everybody's problem was. But I think that it's true, we need to have some type of understanding on what level these kids are at and what they're learning, and that's how we can figure that out, is through some form of a test. But at the end of the day, I think that the dropout rate will be better because the kids won't feel like, I'm going to fail anyways, I haven't passed this test.
Thank you. Mr. Sylvia.
Yeah, as someone that worked in HR for 40 years, I can tell you that, you know, the tests that we have going on, is it really measuring that? Because we had, basically when we bring people on board, they couldn't write, and these are college graduates a lot of times, attorneys sometimes, they couldn't write, and they couldn't interpret regulations. So my thing is, we have a test, but we're teaching to a test. And, you know, kids, they've got this new form of learning, but what happened before worked. I mean, when you're running into kids that can't read or can't write after 4 years of college, that's scary to me. So are we putting a test out and it's just, this is what it is, but you have no critical thinking skills or anything like that? We need to move toward the future. AI is going to be a big thing in this country in the next couple of years. It already is now, but so we need to start teaching our children how to, at least if you can read, you can pretty much do any job. So I'm not really a big fan of the MCAS because I think these kids went through 12 years of school and everything was dependent on them passing this test at the end. And some kids are not good test takers, so.
Thank you. Mr. Aguirre.
So I believe that the MCAS test was based on state standards, and I think we should hold students to the standards. So we get all worked up over the MCAS piece, but in essence, each and every person that I've ever talked to wants to make sure that the DESE, the Department of Education, has state standards that students need to meet in order to get to 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, right through. The problem is we're not getting students to graduate with those skills. Students need to be competent in reading, writing, and math, and quite frankly, we're graduating students that are not competent in those regards. So we need to look at different things. But here we are on the school committee. The school committee has several roles to play. The most major role that we can play in any given year in any school committee across Massachusetts is that we need to hire the best and the brightest for each and every job. And that starts with the top as the superintendent. The academic achievement has been low for many years, and it's still too low. Whether you measure it by MCAS scores or any other achievement, we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to analyze the data, and the data shows that we're not meeting the standards. And we have one major role, is to pick the superintendent, qualified leader to be our superintendent. The current school committee failed miserably in this regard. We need to put the most qualified people in all jobs across the school system. The current school committee didn't choose the right person for the job, and now we have someone that we're trying to work our best with, but we didn't hire the best and brightest. If you run a business, you should want the best and the brightest to operate that system and move academic achievement, strategic planning, and
Thank
we've
you.
failed miserably.
Thank you. Mr. Dias.
Mr. Aguiar's last point, 1,000,000% agree with him. And the first thing a new school committee needs to do day one is fix that issue that should never have happened in the first place. So going to your MCAS part, obviously we're looking at the MCAS scores, but there's more than just that. Let's look at our numbers in math, writing, reading across the district. They're terrible. And if you start questioning these things during a school committee meeting this year, the majority would get mad. You hear moaning and groaning, ending school committee meetings early just so we don't discuss issues. That needs to stop. One point that I want to bring up as well is what I hopefully a future administration will do is we need a strategic plan and to make sure that our money is going towards supporting teachers. And that's the bottom line. And yeah, so I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Dudek.
I know when the MCAS came up on the ballot and whether or not it should be a requirement or not anymore, teachers, not just in Fall River, but across the Commonwealth, were complaining or at least bringing up the possibility that by taking it away as a graduation requirement, but keeping it in place, was going to take away the students' incentive, some of the students' incentive, to really focus on it and, for lack of a better word, care about it as much as they should. Meanwhile, it's still being left as a metric to judge the schools, which, again, everyone who had that fear, they've been proven to be correct. If we are going to keep the MCAS, it should just be one of the metrics we use to grade the schools, not the most overriding one. And yes, we do need to figure out a different way to measure if students are ready to graduate. But where the voters have left the MCAS right now, which I was in favor of removing it as a graduation requirement, has kind of left the schools in a middle position where it's still as important to them, but not to the ones who are actually taking the test.
Thank you.
Yep.
Back now to Michael Sylvia for our next question. And first to answer this question will be John Sylvia.
Fall River schools limited cell phone use in the classroom not too long ago. It seemed unpopular at the time with students and parents, but the benefits have been significant if you talk to any of the teachers. What is an idea you have that may be unpopular today, but will have obvious benefits to the students?
I like the cell phone policy. I think it's great. I mean, we all go to stores and the kids are on their phones. So, and I think even adults have done that. You know, the adults do that as well, but it's one thing that would drive me crazy, that people had to look at their phones or it's an emergency. So I think this is a great policy, and I hope the city or the school department will keep this going. But I'm sorry, I missed the last part of the question.
So what's an idea that might be unpopular with parents and students today, but will have obvious benefits in the future? So like, if you followed online and you followed the progress, the parents were against not being able to talk to the students. And of course, the students wanted their phone.
Yeah.
But the benefits were obvious after.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. Yeah, I'm sorry. On the top of my head, I can't think of anything that you're saying a new program that we create that would be successful. Well, actually, maybe I should wind back with that. I would like to see 1982, I went to Durfee High School, moved here from Taunton in 78, no bus service for Durfee High School. You used to have to buy a bus pass. Fast forward, we're still having that here. I know it's always a problem about the budget, but we need to find a way to do that. That will probably increase our attendance record, which is really abysmal here. So I'd like to see that happen. I've heard a lot of folks that they don't want their kids taking the SERTA bus. They're crowded, and then there's no supervision on that. So I think that's
Thank you.
something. Sorry.
Okay.
I didn't,
Thank you. Mr. Aguirre.
Yeah, so the cell phone policy, I did vote for that, and I do think it was a good effort. We had, for many years, we've said we're going to put the students to put their phones on a rack or something like that, all these different ideas. None of them actually worked. At the end of the day, I think this is working the best that we can. This year I was a little critical because they didn't start off the school year with it, but that's just a separate issue. Ultimately, the students know the expectations. They put their devices in, and the teachers can teach and the students can learn. So I've heard the same comments that I do think it's working. A couple of policies that I think would be maybe not popular, but I think they would get us some results. One would be merit pay for administration. So we look at it as a school committee and we say, everyone automatically, when you're in a union, and these are non-union folks, automatically, oh, everybody gets 5%, everybody gets whatever the percent. We've had that debate with the superintendent. I have a disagreement with her. She thinks that everyone should automatically just get 5%. And when you're in a leadership role, maybe you can get it if you've done certain things, but maybe you should deserve 1% or 2%. And it's not just test scores, it's how you run your school. Is it being a quality environment for kids and families? Merit pay would be one that I think is non-union folks, we should look at it. Real discipline is something I think needs to happen. There has to be some consequences for behavior. That includes the parents and the students. We need to know, you act up in school, you're going to get disciplined so the teachers can teach and the students can learn. The last one is on attendance. We have laws in this Commonwealth that
Thank
make
you.
zero sense about attendance, and we need to change it.
Thank you. Mr. Dias.
Thank you. First on the school committee voted to implement the policy, and I have some hesitations around student safety Again, I'm not in the classroom, like I'm not in the schools every single day, so it's hard to make an evaluation. But that was the concerns I've heard from parents. And working in a district myself, I could see the need for exemptions, specifically for IEP medical purposes. So I think it's important when we craft the policy, we make sure we don't bog ourselves down with language and give the ability for the administration to implement that policy. And to this, I don't know if this is to this point, but again, if we're going to implement a policy, we got to make sure it's fully followed. We had an issue with the cell phone policy where we didn't even know they had enough pouches to begin the year. We asked about it, and the administration gave us pushback on that. So to go to your point about a policy that may not be popular, I'm not sure if this would be popular or not popular. I believe our top leadership positions, specifically superintendent, assistant superintendents, I think we need to really consider having them be Fall River residents and living in the district. One, to make sure they're not going all the way across the state every single day. We want to make sure they're up and ready and fully energized when they come every single day, safety issue, and just so they can be more completely involved with the community. So I'm not sure if that's popular or unpopular. I think there might be some pushback to that, but I wanted to make sure I answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dudek.
As a parent, I really only had one concern with the cell phone policy, and that was the worst-case scenario lockdown situation and inability to get in touch with my children if I needed to. What, as someone who wasn't involved in any decisions, would have liked to have seen tried at that point in time would have been like a 30-pouch thing attached to the door of each classroom, where the teacher would have the access to it. That way, again, worst-case scenario, so we could get in touch with our students if we need to. I believe Mr. Aguirre when he said that was considered, and if it didn't work, I understand that. And what are we, 2-3 years into the under-pouch policy now? I will absolutely agree. My daughters both admit there are absolute benefits to not being to both them and their classmates not constantly being on their phone. So I would have liked to have. I would like to know what that 30-pouch thing would have looked like. But beyond that, I really think that it has been a benefit.
Thank you. Mr. Corey.
The no cell phone policy was a result of our hardworking central administrative team trying to solve so many of the challenges that face our children here in Fall River. And my hat's off to this policy, because one of the teachers at Durfee High School just remarked to me last week that it's a game changer in the classroom, because you see on television all these ads about distracted driving and the potentiality for accidents. Well, in school, it's distracted learning, and there's no longer that distraction prevalent inside of a classroom in school. So it was a game changer, and my hat's off to him. Maybe some unpopular policy may be to hold parents a little bit more contractually responsible to communicate with their teachers, their child's teachers, on a more regular basis, and to contract with the school that they would do so, because the schools cannot be thoroughly responsible for the child's progress or behavior, but we need the parents to help us out along the way.
Thank you. Mr. Moniz.
Cell phones,
Like everyone knows, they're a great tool, and I think we all can't live without them. But at the end of the day, we need our kids focused and ready to learn. I agree with what we're doing with the pouches. I wish I could do it at home. I feel that this is the right direction. Do we need to tweak it a little bit more and come up with some new ideas? And we do, but that's going to take all of us to put in some input and try to figure out the best ways to do things, especially if there's emergencies, and how to figure out how our kids are doing, if they're safe or not. I believe in our school system. I think our school systems are safe, and I'm going to follow through with the protocol of the school system's got the phones on hand, and when they get an opportunity to reach out to us and let us know that everything's fine and dandy, then I'll leave it at that. I do believe our schools are safe, and I do believe that we need to keep our kids and their minds off the phones, because once we give them the run of the phones, they lose concentration, they lose their they lose their focus, they lose what they have to do, and that's to go to school, learn, do their sports, and do what they got to do. And when it's time for phones, that's when they get them back. That's how I feel.
Thank you. Ms. Riley.
My district also uses the Yonder pouch, so I'll have to say just from feedback, not just from my own child at Durfee, but from the students I work with in Bristol Warren, not having a cell phone takes a lot of pressures off a student. So I'll say that was a great outcome from the Yonder pouches. I have two things that I think would be outlandish ideas that maybe kids wouldn't like and when adults might not like. But I saw the benefits. I was the principal of Talbot Middle School a long time ago, 2008 now. And I saw the benefits of uniforms. I was there the first year they had uniforms. So I might lose all my 18-year-old votes at Durfee, but I think a uniform at the high school level would take a load off of a lot of students and families. I just think it takes away so many concerns and worries, and just even the deliberation in the morning of what you're going to put on. That all goes away when you have a uniform. So that would be one policy that I would think about for the high school. And then for the adults, I would say one of the things that I have found in my experience is that paraprofessionals, teaching assistants, need more support and more skill sets because they're dealing with students who have more acute behaviors than ever before. Coming out of COVID, we have a lot of students who are struggling, both social, emotionally, behaviorally, and really sometimes just in general. And there are lots of professional learning that we could provide, and I think being able to not only give them those opportunities, but pay more when they do get some certification. So I know we have some RBTs, registered behavior technicians in the district. It's an excellent training for dealing with students who struggle. So I would recommend we try to expand that across the district and then support those paraprofessionals by offering that increased
Thank
pay
you.
for that.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart.
So I love the Yonder pouch idea. When I told my middle schooler that I was going to run, the first thing she said to me was, "Can you get rid of the Yonder pouches?" I said, "No, I like the idea." I have called the school when I needed her for something, so I have taken that up on it. That's what they told us to do. That's what I've done. So to me, I think it was a great idea, and I have no problems with it. As far as something that might be unpopular, it would be unpopular to few, but I don't think we take bullying seriously enough. So I think to the parents of the bullies, they may have an issue, but I think that we need to do things a little faster, because I think that it takes a kid gets bullied and it takes 6 weeks to do this, 2 weeks to do that before something gets done, and it's a problem to me. So I think that if it gets done faster, and the bullying end of it, the parent of the bully might have the issue with it, but I think we have a bullying issue, and people might say we don't, but we absolutely do have a bullying issue here.
Thank you. Pam Martin has our next question, and it will be answered first by Colin Dias.
Okay. Two common news headlines involve a mass casualty event, and most scary is that they happen at places frequented by young people, such as shopping malls, churches, and very disturbing is schools. How can professionals counsel children after these violent events? And how much of a role should school staff be responsible for helping lessen the children's anxieties after these tragedies?
Sure. No, thank you for the question. I'm not sure if you're asking more of like after the fact question.
After the fact. So something that even happens in another state, like kids are seeing it, like we've learned through social media. It can be stressful to go back to school thinking, my goodness, can this happen at my school? Can this happen where my mom or dad works? How much of a role do our educators need to play in lessening those anxieties that I know many kids feel?
No, and I think the answer to your question, a lot of it needs to come down to public trust in the school district, which some don't have. So the way we can gain public trust is by doing the right thing and being and fully transparent with the public and what we're doing. And some ideas I have for safety and comments on safety is we need to make sure we're fully lockstep with our police department, our SRO team, where we have the right plans in place, we have the right trainings in place, the different the drills and things like that, and we're showing that we're doing a great job at like making sure like it's going well. So, and again, so one issue that I took issue with is at the last graduation, there was an individual that had a firearm and no notification to the public at Durfee graduation, no notification to the public. Superintendent told us nothing. We had to find out through a staff member like long time after. When incidents happen, we need to make sure, one, we're addressing them immediately. We have the plans in place. Two, we're addressing it with the public, explaining what happened, how an issue was stopped, and what we're doing going forward. Because knock on wood, we haven't had any major issue here, but we get the.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Dudek.
I do believe that the school staff should play a big part in supporting, when tragedies do happen. Both of my daughters are 12, and they're well aware of all the things going on in the world. One of them really likes making dark jokes about it, which that's her way of coping. I get it. She gets that from me. It's my fault. But one thing that I really believe is that the staff of these schools see the children more often than not, more than anybody outside of their immediate guardians. So between the guardians and the teachers, there needs to be an open communication back and forth saying, your son seems to really be taking something hard today. Can you try to help find out what it is? Or the other way as well, my daughter's really in a depressed mood today. I'm giving you a heads up. Can you also attempt to see if you can help figure out what's going on with her, so that the kids, both at home and at school, are getting the support that they need to try to help figure out what's going on in the world. I'm 48 years old and I still don't know what's going on in the world. Asking 12-year-olds the same thing is very tough.
Thank you. Yep. Mr. Corey.
Well, as far as the school itself is concerned, I'm really pleased that all our schools have electronic entry, so nobody can get in. And Durfee and RPA both have the Evolve metal detector system, which is the best around. Same thing as Gillette Stadium. So we're really on a lockdown with our technology right there. But as a former school adjustment counselor, when an event happens in the nation, such as a school shooting or something as bad as that, and the children are really shaken by it, then I'm really pleased that the extra money we got from the Student Opportunity Act, of which I was the loudest advocate for in my first term, and we are now reaping the benefits of having multiple adjustment counselors in each school, tethered by extra social emotional liaisons in each school to help put out all the little fires that arise in a school day. And so there's constant communication between the counseling aspect and the administration at the school as to what's going on. So I'm very pleased to know that in Fall River, we've outfitted each one of our schools with the wealth of those resources.
Thank you. Mr. Moniz.
Well, tragedies, like anything, affect us all, from schools to homes to the country. Like anything, thank you for letting us know that we have the proper equipment to make sure that our schools are safe. And but at the end of the day, when we see a community go through some type of tragedy, or a school system go through some type of tragedy, we got to be there to be able to support, figure out what the school systems need, what the kids need, what the families need, and come together as a community to help one another get through it and find better ways and better solutions to prevent these things from happening. But that takes us all, we all have to do it across the whole country, and be part of a system that's gonna help one another and support one another.
Thank you. Ms. Riley.
Thank you. So I think those tragedies affect everyone, including staff. So to expect that staff is fully equipped to support students is, I think, not the right expectation unless we've done some work ahead of time. So I think it's important that we do train staff to identify mental health issues, provide them with some minimal training to be able to interact with students in a supportive way, and perhaps guide them to the next level of support. But I think we need to make sure that we offer opportunities for both staff and students to receive additional mental health care. Glad to hear we have so many staff within the district that can support, but I know we also use Cartwheel, which is another source of mental health training, mental health support that students can access at home and via their computer. And there are other opportunities out there where we may be able to use some grant funding for social emotional support for both students and staff. And I think what we share with elementary students is always different than what we share with middle and high school students. And sometimes what we need to provide is a good communication tool out to parents that shares supports they can use with their child. We may not want to have that discussion with elementary students, but parents may want to do that. So how can we help parents with some supports that they can use, some guiding questions, some ways to access their child's feelings in a way that lets them talk about that with them. So I think there are definitely tools we can use as a district
Thank
to
you.
support parents and staff.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart.
So we had a tragedy recently, and the school district had called in some counselors in a couple schools in the area that went in. I think that was probably the best thing that we could do, because number one, our stacks are already overloaded, and a lot of the kids might not even want to go and talk to them, and some of them might not even know what to say. So I think that to continue to do that would probably be the best bet, to have some of those counselors come in and talk to the kids. Sometimes the local ones are probably what hurt them more or affect the kids more. Unfortunately, there's so many school shootings and so many school things. Some of these kids are so desensitized to them that it doesn't affect them as much, but the local stuff affects them the most. And I think that when those things happen, the kids need, those counselors to be around. So we should bring those people into all of the schools, see what kids need them, and make their rounds through all of them. I understand we're not going to be able to have as many to hit every single school the whole time for the entire day, but for those counselors to be there to support all the kids and the staff.
Thank you. Mr. Sylvia.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen, we have counselors when there are issues, and many schools do that as well. But I think as long as we have procedures, which it sounds like we have fire drills, where kids feel confident in that kind of thing, I think it's good to have the counselors, but I think we need to have this go back to the parents and let the parents explain this is what happened. Because, as other folks had said, some of these teachers, they're not counselors, are they equipped to deal with that? And I think you can run into trouble sometimes if teachers are talking about this. I think we have to go back to letting the parents explain that to their children.
Thank you. Mr. Aguirre.
So yes, I do think the counselors should be involved. So a few things. We do have a well thought out response plan to any casualty event. We also have staff in place. We have staffing infrastructure. Sometimes people are very easy to criticize administrators and what do they do? Why do we need all these folks? The reason why we need them is because we need to plan for these things, give the proper training, make sure that people are certified. So we have many mental health counselors in the school system to counsel children, not only in a casualty event, but I want to focus on the fact that we need to meet our students where they are and the services that they need, whatever they may be, during the school day. If you look at it and say that mental health issues, which is a fact, are a major issue in today's society, both for young people as well as in adults. But if a student's mental health needs are not met, they will be not in the proper place to learn in the school. So we definitely have qualified people, we have plans in place, but we do need to have professionals. Somebody just mentioned about we can't have people that are unqualified. So we have many qualified people, and we need to steer the students to those qualified people. Just as an aside, when you mentioned the question about do we need to call in a counselor, just in real life, for instance, if I have a pipe break in my house and I need a plumber, personally I call Manny Monis. That's who I would call. If you have a crisis and an issue and you have mental health needs for the kids, we call in the mental health counselor. So the professionals need to do the job that they're qualified, ready, and able to do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Dan Medeiros is up next with our next question, and it'll be answered first by Randy Dudek.
So the district has gone 2 years without having a strategic plan in place, and it may be another year before we see one. What do you hope to see in this plan when it finally arrives?
I have to admit, slightly out of things that I'm currently aware of, so starting this one off with a bang. What I would like to see, though, from any kind of plan would be a way to bring everybody together. Like I said before, I want everyone to feel like they're an equal stakeholder in the entire school district. Even people who don't have students in the district, whether they don't have kids or kids have graduated, they're still going to benefit from a stronger school system. We want everyone graduating with the skills they need in order to become successful, hopefully staying in Fall River to help make the entire city better down the road. So my hope would be any plan for the schools is going to have everyone, teachers, administration, parents, students, and just community members all feeling like equal stakeholders, knowing that if the schools are strong, the city's going to be strong, and the only way to do that is by everybody working together.
Thank you. Mr. Corey.
So, in the strategic plan, hopefully it's best case scenario. And when ours is devised, I'm hoping that it will really address literacy at the early stages of the game, because literacy is the main component for success across the board in education. I would also like it to continue to address critical thinking in the classroom and pedagogy. I would also like it to address school safety issues as they constantly arise, and they're even more critical now than they ever have been. I would also like a strategic plan to continue to work on attendance issues which are affected by transportation in our city. And transportation is a big problem unto itself, which affects attendance. And the fact that we have larger schools today as opposed to 50 years ago when we had smaller neighborhood schools where children could walk to school on a regular basis. But today it's far more challenging, you know, to attend school with regularity. So those are the kind of services that I would like to see, you know, addressed in a strategic plan, and hopefully it would all equal success for the students and their families.
Thank you. Mr. Moniz.
I believe that, like usual, looking at the past, you know what issues we have, what we have up against us, and everything else. Coming up with a new plan of changing the way we do things, looking at our leadership and staffing to make sure everything evolves around our kids and our kids' future, how we're teaching them, how they're being basically taught. That way we can make sure that the plan is always the kids. Then it's staffing and everything else, making sure that we have everything else that they need. But the kids have to make sure, we have to make sure that the kids are safe and have everything in the right direction for them to prosper and grow and move in the right direction. At the end of the day, I don't see that happening because due to leadership, due to issues in staffing and everything else. So we have a lot of issues, and like I said, I don't have the answers to everything, but I'm willing to work with whoever and whatever that we have to do to make things happen. I'm new to this, I'm not a politician, but I know we do have problems.
Thank you. Ms. Riley.
Strategic planning is one of my campaign priorities. I think it is, without it, I don't know how we know what we're working towards or how we measure success. I think a strategic plan is exactly one of the things that Mr. Dudek shared. Is it's built by the community, parents, staff, students. Everyone has to be part of the process, and it's multifaceted. So you're right, we will not have a strategic plan by next week. That's not how strategic plans work. We have to take the time to collect data, to survey families, the community, our students, to survey staff, to get feedback, to put together groups that will dictate what those goals are. And they tend to be pretty typical goals for school districts. I have a strategic plan in my district. I've been a part of building them in multiple organizations. I did it at the state level when I was working for the State Department of Ed. Those bits of information we collect in schools typically lead to very similar goals. One is usually around academics, and it might be early literacy if that's what comes out of our work, of our collection of data. It's certainly attendance tends to show up on these things, safety, security, facilities, technology. There are some common threads to what ends up in a strategic plan. The detail of how we get to those goals will be something that the district staff works on and shares with us how they plan to meet the goals identified by the school committee once the plan has been put together. I really think
you.
without, oh, no, sorry.
Ms. Stewart.
So I actually, for my regular job, we just finished a strategic plan, so I'm very familiar with doing them. We are correct, it takes too many pieces, there's a million things that have to happen, too many. It's not just one person who makes it, there's a lot of people that come into it, and it's not just one, so I can't say, this is what's going to be inside of it, because you don't know until you get into the nitty gritty on what exactly is going to be inside of it. What I would like to see inside of it is class sizes, literacy, the pre-K program. We keep talking about how we're going to try to change schools to a pre-K to 8. I would like to see if they have that model inside of that, different things like that. So to sit here and say, this is what is going to be in there, we won't know. But I hope that they pick the great people to, teachers, students of all kinds, from, people think that you can't learn stuff from elementary school. I promise you can learn a lot from elementary school students. When I tell you, you need to get it from young to older, all areas, all positive with the community, and get them all involved. And I think that we won't know exactly what's inside of it and what's going to be until it's dead and done.
Thank you. Mr. Sylvia.
Yeah, I'd like to see a few things, and one of them being building maintenance. We have a high school that I went to in 1978, graduated in 82. First one at that high school, and we had to build a new high school. And we need to put money into these schools to maintain them. I'm not really happy with us building a new school instead of fixing the old ones. And I think along the way, we have to maintain them. And this city is not good with maintaining buildings or city buildings. So I'd like to really see that finally written in there. And I think then when we go to the taxpayers and say, hey, we need to have this school built, we've shown them that we've maintained this building. However, it's better to go this route. The other thing is the absentee issue and the graduation rate. I'd really think the whole busing issue, I know it's going to cost money, but we've never tackled that to see. Let's do that and see if this does improve those different situations. And the last thing I'd like to see is government. I worked with Junior Achievement as a volunteer years ago. I'd like to see us have government and then financial literacy for the older kids to know how well, back in my day it was write a check, now it's different. But to know that, when you get a check of $200, you can't spend the whole thing because these are the consequences, and I don't think that's taught right now. So I'd really like to see something in there on that.
Thank you. Mr. Aguirre.
So a strategic plan is very important. I, for one, and I've voiced this at multiple school committee meetings, the goal-setting meeting for the superintendent, it's not acceptable. So we have, not only do we not have a strategic plan, we don't have a strategic plan that's even been started by the current administration. So the new superintendent was started on July 1 of 2024. That's over 15 months ago, and we're just now starting a strategic plan. So when Mrs. Riley was running for the superintendent and interviewing, she was very clear, along with the other candidates, that strategic planning would be important. Now, it doesn't happen overnight, but it also shouldn't take 15 months to get it started. And I think that's the problem. But here on the school committee, we have some issues. The current school committee has allowed this kind of thing to happen. The current mayor has allowed this to happen. Because anybody on the committee that questions the superintendent on this, it gets shot down, you try to get badgered, and you don't get the actual group together to say, we need a strategic plan. A strategic plan would have allowed us to avoid the pre-K issue that we have. We have a class size crisis that no one's addressing because we just said we're going to wait till 2026 to deal with it. So a strategic plan allows us all to be on the same page, where we're heading, and what are we going to do with measurable goals along the way. Try and look to see if we hold anybody in administration, especially the superintendent, accountable to measurable goals. You just have to go back and watch the goal-setting meeting. When out of the 5 goals, she said we didn't meet 3, I didn't even try them, and then we had the mayor telling me and other members, let's move on to 26, please. That's the thing that needs to stop.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Dias.
Again, fully agree with my colleague to my right, and I just want to start with saying I am glad there are individuals on the stage that know how to put together a strategic plan, because our superintendent doesn't. And someone correct me if I'm wrong, the reason why we didn't start it in day one is because it was too much for a first-year superintendent. That, I believe, is more than unacceptable, and it's true. The majority of the school committee did not care and does not care. They just want to get through the year. The only 2 incumbents on the stage that addressed the issues, myself and Mr. Aguirre. But going into what I like to see in the strategic plan, of course, we need to get feedback from all stakeholders, the community, public hearings, the community, the different unions, and different educators and different staff across the board, and students, of course, as well. We need to address our low academic achievements, our rising costs across the board for different things. Public safety is obviously very important as well. I believe there was a comment made about Evolve being in all the classrooms. I don't think they are, and I think that's something that needs to be addressed as well. And of course, we need accountability, and we need to make sure we have the appropriate policies. So, and I also like to end with this as well. I'd be hesitant because we're going to need leadership that this school committee approves to lead a strategic plan. I'd be hesitant allowing someone who didn't want to make a strategic plan to lead such a plan. So that, of course, needs to be addressed as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will be asked by Michael Sylvia, and it will be answered first by Kevin Aguiar.
Parental involvement is critical to a child's education. What ideas do you have for getting parents more involved in their education?
Thank you for the question. So obviously, parental involvement is very important in anything that a student does, whether it's in school, extracurricular activities. The parents need to be involved. What we as a school have to do is just face the reality that we have a lot of families right now that are struggling. Parents are struggling to even come to school, put in the time to work with their children at home. It's not an ideal situation. So we can't just say, well, we don't need to deal with that. We have to face that reality and then create some programs and policies in order to get them into the school. One of the things that we don't do, I don't believe, is make it welcoming for parents to come into school. The communication sometimes is lacking between the schools and the parents. That doesn't mean in all cases. We have many, many people that do a great job of that. But as a whole school community, both in the school level and the district level, we need to communicate with parents to talk about how they can help, what they can do. One of the things that I was mentioning before about the attendance when it was a non-popular issue, we also have to hold people accountable and parents accountable to getting their students in school. When you look at the law related to, in the Massachusetts legislature, related to attendance, it's a joke. So what happens is the school, if you're running a school, you're a counselor, you're a principal, whoever, kids are just not present. They cannot learn if they're not present, and there's nothing that we can do. You take a student to court, you try to take our family to court, the court does nothing to help, they give a $25 fine, maybe if that's the case. We need to be able to utilize the court system to make sure that they're doing their role as a parent, as tough as that might be. We need to change some of the laws.
Thank you. Mr. Dias.
Thank you for the question, and it's something that I've taken very seriously as a member of the school committee. Of course, first of all, we need to make sure, actually I'm going to start with this. So one issue I wanted to tackle, and I believe it goes a long way, making sure all our meetings are live streamed. Of course, as you know, Mike, when you get more viewership on a Facebook live stream than you do a pre-recorded post. So of course, getting public feedback and public engagement is very important from parents and anyone. We need to make sure our school councils are functional. They're required to be in every single school, and we need to double check on that. We need to make sure we're supporting our PTO organizations, which I take great pride in doing. We need, like Mr. Aguiar said, we need to make sure we have open communication with parents and to make sure we're accessible as well. When we're having different meetings with parents, making sure we have all different live streams and options available if they're not available to come into the school themselves. And just making sure we have an open voice. I remember just one time recently, a parent came to a meeting and wanted to speak about a head lice issue, and she was completely disrespected by the leadership in the school committee just because she was a little bit late. They didn't even want her to speak. That type of attitude needs to end. We can't run meetings like we're in North Korea. Again, we need to be able to allow the school committee members to speak, and we need to allow the community to speak. We need to start fostering that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dudek.
I've mentioned a few times, and I'm probably going to mention it a few more times. I really think that in order for the schools to be successful, it needs to be everyone, parents, community, teachers, all need to be equal stakeholders. My experience in the two schools my daughters have been in so far have been that parent-square communication has been fairly immediate and also, very frequent. I feel like we are getting updates from the teachers, the principal, pretty quickly. If there's a fire drill, they let us know that it happened, everyone came through and it went fine. I will admit that there are situations, with the diversity of Fall River, it does make it slightly more difficult for some parents to stay involved. I do know it was 2 years ago, my family, I remember, we're out to dinner and I see another communication come from the elementary school at the time. And I was used to communication coming home in 3 languages, but this time I was actually very excited to see this communication also came in a 4th language, and I'm like trying to figure out what it is. I believe it was Haitian Creole, I'm not positive, but it was nice to see a 4th language come out because we're trying to keep all the parents involved. I think that the diversity of Fall River is one of the things that has made this city great, is going to make this city great again, and not only should it be protected, but it needs to be celebrated more, and that's going to help keep all the parents involved in their children's education.
Thank you. Mr. Corey.
Thank you. You heard Mr. Dudek just give a response, and he represents the parents, which I thought was a very apt response. We sponsor school councils, we have PTOs, we have special education parent advisory councils, CPAC, of which Mrs. Stewart leads, and we have the English Language Learners Parent Advisory Council as well. We try to entertain as many parents as possible. I will disagree with my colleague to the right about the parent that presented at the school committee, because we had her at a subcommittee meeting and we let her go on and on about her issue very respectfully. And we just found different reasons to disagree with her cause. So we are inviting to parents. As a School of Justice counsel myself, I performed many home visits and had direct relationships with parents. And I know that this question comes up at each and every election because it's a hot button issue. But I can tell you that we are striving to keep parents involved in their child's education.
Thank you. Mr. Moniz.
Well, I agree. Like anything, as a parent, we care about how you guys filter everything back to us and how you guys keep us involved and I, like anything, watching school committee meetings and being discouraged by how they are going on and how parents put their input in and don't get the proper answers and everything else. I think things need to change. I think, especially at the school committee level, when they come up to bring their concerns, I think we have to take that to consideration, that they are stepping up. They do have concerns, and we have to find find ways of answering them and giving them the comfort and the security of that we're behind whatever issues that they think that they may be bringing up, that we're going to find the proper answers and give them the security that we're doing the best we can. And that's, right now, I don't see that happening. And I do believe that we need to work on that and make sure our parents are being heard and giving them the proper time and answers that they need.
Thank you. Ms. Riley.
Sure. As a parent of a high schooler, I do feel that there's a lot of information that comes out. I feel like there's great communication from the high school. So I think when I think about parental involvement, I think it looks different for elementary, middle, and high school. And I would like to see more involvement in the schools, volunteer opportunities for parents. And parents don't always feel comfortable coming into volunteer, so what are some things we could do to make parents comfortable? Little workshops saying, here's what it would look like if you came to our school, here are the expectations, we'd love for you to come in and read to students, or be a part of recess or lunch, or just some supports. Students love to see their parents in school. Most students like to see their parents in school. And so really giving parents the opportunity to be a part of the school in any way they can, whether it's by supporting academics or just being someone there to help play at recess or make sure students are engaged. I do think there are some barriers for parents in terms of getting engaged. We talked about, people have to work and they might have multiple jobs. So meeting people where they are and creating opportunities sometimes within the community and in community centers where we can bring staff and students and parents together in groups versus worrying about getting them in individually into school and providing them with information to support their child. For our elementary kids, we heard a lot about literacy. Even just having your child read to you as a way of engaging in what's happening in school, I think is a way to get parents involved.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart.
So I think that a lot of our parents, the problems with getting them into schools, a lot of our parents don't have cars. So to get them into the school is a lot, it's hard. Sometimes it is the time the schools need to change up the time that they can have it. So if it, sometimes it could be directly after school, sometimes it could be at 5 o'clock. If they change up the times of some of the events, that could help getting them involved. I also think that, sometimes we also have to remember that the teachers, we're paying the teachers, and teachers, the contractually, they're how it works. But we can pay a program to teach math, for example, to parents, and they can do it on Zoom. We can put it out there. It doesn't have to be live, different things to help parents with reading or, anything that it could be. We just have to put it out there that can have the parents involved. I am the president of the CPAC, Special Education Parent Advisory Council, and I have the same issues. So we have it on Tuesdays. Sometimes we have it on Zoom, sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's in person. We have it in different spots of the city so that people can come. Sometimes they come on a bus. So we have it, different spots so that they can come, because you're never going to know who's coming, how they're coming, and how to make it accessible for everybody. So it's just, you got to understand that we are in a city that a lot of parents don't have the accessibilities that maybe other cities have. So if you want the parents involved, you have to accommodate them.
Thank you. Mr. Sylvia.
I agree. I'm a product of a single parent home. So my mom worked 2 or 3 jobs. Me and my brother, basically after school, latchkey kids back in the 70s. But I think Fall River, from what I've seen, they do a pretty good job. They have like nights at schools where they have activities and stuff like that. So I think they do, they do a good job as best as they can. I belong to 2 nonprofits, my neighborhood association and the Fall River Street Tree Planning Program, and it's very hard to get volunteers now. Everybody's busy doing different things. So I think it's a national thing that, we're having issues getting people to do things. And I'll just give an example. I know the Green School, which is my neighborhood school. A few years back, I went to a PTO meeting as part of our neighborhood group, and there was one person there, the president of the PTO. So I'm not sure, how we can change that. But on the attendance, somebody had talked about the attendance issue here and getting parents involved. I think that's going to be done at the state level. And I'll give you an example. My daughter knows a teacher that just moved to Florida. And if you're absent 10 times, those kids are going to be put into some kind of detention where they have to do that. And if they go over a certain number of time, if the parent's on benefits, they look at taking that away. But this is going to be done at a state level here. We don't have a lot of control of that. But it seems to be working in this other state from what this person had told me. So,
Thank you. We don't have time for one more question, so we will move on now to our closing statements. There is one candidate who was not chosen to answer a question first. So this individual will be giving the closing statement first. So 90-second closing statements will start with Anna Riley.
My parents were immigrants. I'm the oldest of 6 children born here in Fall River, and I'm going to say that education opened doors to the life I have today. I'm very fortunate to have had a career in education, to experience all of the roles, to be a teacher, to be a principal, and then to be in central office. Being on the school committee is my way to give back. I feel like I have a breadth of experience that can benefit the school committee, that can benefit our district, can benefit students, staff, and parents. I have worked in partnership with unions my entire career. Nothing changes without our staff. Our teachers are the most important people in our schools, and I think creating that partnership and a culture and a sense of community amongst our staff has to be one of our high priorities. We need a strategic plan. We need to identify what those priorities are. We have to itemize them. We have to support the district in building out the goals that will get them to meet the plan. And then we have to use that as our measure. Are we doing well? Are we getting there? It has to be our North Star. Without something to measure against, I'm just not sure how we know how we're doing and what else we need to do to support the district. I think we have to really embrace our role as a school committee. I've worked with school committees for more than 13 years at this point, and our job is really around policy, the budget, and supervision of the superintendent. And we have to utilize our tools,
Thank you.
policy and budget particularly.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart.
Thank you, FRC Media, panelists, and candidates. I'm here today not as a politician, but as a mom of 3, 2 currently in Fall River Public Schools. I'm a veteran spouse, a neighbor, a former district employee, and CPAC president. As someone that's walked this journey with many of you, I understand the challenges Our students face the frustration when systems don't respond and the differences that listening and accountability and real action can make. Being a first-time generation of college graduate with my MBA from UMass Dartmouth. We can't predict tomorrow's school committee issues, but we know what today's are. So let's fix it to prepare for tomorrow. If elected, I'll focus on strong fundamentals like reading, math, and attendance. Our special education and inclusion will never be an afterthought. Every IEP tracked, communicated, and implemented with fidelity. We'll have safe, supportive schools, and mental health access will be priority because every student deserves to feel secure, valued, and seen. We don't need more promises. We need follow-through and the courage to put students first, always. So on November 4th, think about the voice you want to hear at the table, one rooted in accountability and heart. I ask for your vote, your voice. Together we can transform our schools, not just for the moment, but for the generations to come. To learn more about me, simply just type in Election L. Stewart online, and my website and my Facebook will come up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Sylvia.
Yeah, I'm a Durfee graduate here in Fall River, and obviously it's in Fall River, but I believe that helped me go into the military, then get 40 years of federal service. And I've been involved in different organizations here in Fall River. I know what the community is like. I'm like a lot of the kids that are in the community coming from a single parent home. I'm retired now, so I have the time to go out there and do some of the work. I'm asking for your vote. Sorry, I'm messing this up. I'm asking you for your vote on November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Aguirre.
I'd like to first say thank you to all the candidates for putting their candidacy before the voters. This is not an easy task. This takes a lot of courage, and I commend each and every one of you. To the people of Fall River, let me say thank you for your past and present support of my candidacy. I truly do appreciate it. Public service has been an integral part of my life, and I truly believe that I've made a difference during my tenure as an elected official. As a member of the school committee, I do my homework. I ask important questions and advocate for the students on a daily basis. The opportunity to serve as an elected official for our community continues to be one of the most rewarding work that I've ever performed. The Fall River schools continue to face many challenges each and every day, and I offer my services to assist in meeting these challenges directly. I'm willing to stand alone if needed to support what's right for our students and staff with each and every vote. I have experience working full-time as an educator at the elementary, middle, and high school levels, and I currently serve as an elementary school principal. My experience with our education system and the legislative process, as well as my passion to make a difference to the children of Fall River, make me uniquely qualified to continue serving as a member of the school committee. I'm once again asking for your support. On Election Day, I respectfully ask for one of your 6 votes. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you. Mr. Dias.
Thank you. I do want to thank FRC Media, Fall River Reporter, FRG TV, and the Herald News, BCC, Bristol Community College for hosting us tonight, and all my fellow candidates for being here. I believe it's important when you go vote in this election, you vote for not just myself, I'd love your vote, however, but you vote for a majority that you know will serve the position in good faith to serve our students, to support our staff, and to restore credibility with the public. You need a good working majority to get things done. I am asking for one of your 6 votes on November 4th so we can continue to address the issues in good faith and dialogue. My family has served this community through my grandfather, Gene Alves, and my uncle, former Mayor Wolf Flanagan. In my year and a half on this committee, I do enjoy helping the parents, asking the questions that need to be asked, and serving this community. I really do. I hope to have a full 2-year term to continue the work and the advocacy that I have started, and we can work with a team. I believe we have some really good people running on the stage tonight, and if we work as a team and we work to serve the public, I think we could turn things around. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dudek.
I'd like to start off by thanking Keith and his staff, as well as the panelists, as well as for everyone in attendance here and watching online. Thank you for your concern to something as important as our schools. I really feel that the way to get our schools to the place where, as a community, I think we all want it to be, is by working together. And we've seen it throughout time, both historical, and even just in the past couple of months. Fall River is at its best when everybody comes together and works together. It's beautiful, and I'm so glad that we've moved here. I hope that I've said enough on this stage to earn your vote on November 4th, where I would love to get the opportunity to work together with 5 other candidates, that we can work together to provide the schools that Fall River wants and deserves. Thank you again.
Thank you. Mr. Corey.
I was a student here for my entire life in education. My 4 children were students in the Fall River Public Schools. My mom was a high school dropout who ended up working in the mills. And she said, "You're going to go to college." And that turned my life around. And I ended up getting a degree in education and political science, and served as a social studies teacher and a school adjustment counselor for 30 years in our Fall River Public Schools. Once I retired, I found a sense of mission to want to give back. And I really am very proud of my service. I'm honest, I have integrity, and I have morality. And that's how I judge each and every issue that arises before me, with that sense, that sensibility. Thank you for placing your faith and trust in me. These last 2 terms, I always aspire to serve with my heart and rely on my 30 years of experience in service to the teachers, students, and staff of the Fall River Public Schools.
Thank you. And Mr. Moniz.
Thank you. My name is Manny Moniz, and I'm very proud to be a candidate for the Fall River School Committee. My wife and I raised 3 children in Fall River, and our 2 youngest children attend Durfee High School. Professionally, I've spent 26 years in the trades, holding master licenses in plumbing, HVAC, sheet metal fabrication, as well as running my own small business. These experiences have taught me the values of hard work, problem solving, and accountability. I also have experience working for the Fall River Public Schools as the maintenance director. In this role, I was able to work in every corner of every building, so I have the unique knowledge that will benefit our schools, including saving money. I know what works well and what needs to change in maintaining facilities. I intend to listen to others on the committee, parents and guardians, as well as workers within the school department before making any decisions. I will not be afraid to ask questions in the effort to get the best results. My intent will be to always use a common sense approach to problem solving and decision making. On election day, I respectfully ask for your consideration with one of your 6 votes. Thank you, and God bless.
I want to thank the candidates and the panelists for joining us tonight. I also want to thank our FRC media staff working behind the scenes, Steve Rice, Michelle Dumas, and Lucy Cabral. You can watch a replay of this forum and find out more information and other videos we have with the candidates in Fall River by tuning into Channel 95 on Comcast Cable or visiting our special Election 2025 webpage, frmedia.org/election 2025. Please make a point to vote on November 4th. We'll be partnering with FRG-TV that night for live coverage of the election results. Thank you for joining us tonight. If you're watching us live, please, one reminder, on Thursday, October 16th, we'll be back to host a forum featuring the candidates for Fall River City Council. We will hold 2 panels that night, one beginning at 6 p.m. and the second at 8 p.m. And then on Tuesday, October 21st at 6:30 p.m., we'll be hosting Mayor Paul Coogan and challenger Gabriel Boomer Amaral for our mayoral debate. Thanks for watching again, and have a good night.